I'll bet you 1,000 crumbs you've never heard of the first and only Emperor of the United States. No? Let me explain. Emperor Norton I was born Joshua Abraham Norton in Kentish, Deptford, England, now part of London. His birth date is debated, but February 4th, 1818 is the most likely. In 1820, 2-year-old Joshua and his parents, John Norton and Sarah Norden, sailed to South Africa as part of a British colonization effort. He grew up in Grahamstown, now Maconda, before moving to Port Elizabeth in 1839. After a failed business venture with his brother-in-law and a stint as an auctioneer, Joshua headed to Cape Town in 1843 or 44 to work for his father's business. But not content to work for Daddy, he soon returned to England. In late 1845, he boarded the Sunbeam in Liverpool and sailed to the U.S. On March 12, 1846, 28-year-old Joshua arrived in Boston, eventually settling for good in San Francisco. Over the next few years, Joshua built a fortune in commodities and real estate. By late 1852, he had made quite the name for himself. But his success didn't last. A risky rice deal in December 1852 led to a contract dispute, and by 1854 the California Supreme Court had foreclosed on his ventures. His clients bailed, and by August 1856 he had no choice but to declare bankruptcy. In August 1858, a newspaper ad announced Joshua's run for U.S. Congress, a dream that never materialized. By then, he had decided that the U.S. government just wasn't cutting it anyway. In July 1859, he placed a paid ad in the San Francisco Daily Bulletin, warning of a vague national crisis and urging the citizens of the Union to act. 2 months later, on September 17, 1859, Joshua delivered a second letter to the same paper in person. In it, he declared himself Emperor of the United States and ordered all state representatives to convene at the San Francisco Music Hall the following February. The paper printed it that night for laughs. Thus began Emperor Norton's 20-year reign. Emperor Norton wasted no time issuing imperial decrees. On October 12, 1859, he abolished the U.S. Congress and ordered its members to assemble at the San Francisco Music Hall on February 1st. When Congress failed to comply, how rude! He followed up in January 1860, using the royal we while ordering the army to proceed with a suitable force and clear the halls of Congress. Strangely, that was also ignored. Not all decrees were so aggressive. In 1872, he declared that anyone heard calling his beloved city Frisco would be guilty of a high misdemeanor and fined $25. He also called for a bridge or tunnel to connect San Francisco and Oakland, proposals that would later become the San Francisco-Oakland Bay Bridge and the Trans-Bay Tube. Since the 1930s, there have even been efforts to rename the Bay Bridge in his honor. Emperor Norton also took great interest in foreign affairs, often sending letters to world leaders in hopes of influencing international relations. He repeatedly proposed marriage to Queen Victoria, purely to strengthen the ties between their nations, of course. He also wrote to King Kamehameha V of Hawaii, requesting a personal estate on the islands. By 1865, Emperor Norton had taken up residence in a small room atop the Eureka lodgings. That building was destroyed in the 1906 earthquake and fires. Today, a 4-story apartment complex stands in its place at 650 to 654 Commercial Street. He spent his days reading newspapers, issuing proclamations, and patrolling the streets of San Francisco in full imperial regalia. A blue military-style coat with gold trim, gifted by army officers at the Presidio, a beaver hat decked out with peacock and ostrich feathers, a walking stick, and of course, an umbrella. He must have been quite a sight, but no one seemed to mind. Norton often chatted with fellow San Franciscans about matters he deemed important, like the condition of sidewalks or the upkeep of public property. Though he had no real political power and was undeniably eccentric, he was beloved by the people of San Francisco and beyond. His financial situation never truly recovered, but the community made sure he got by. Some businesses accepted special currency issued in his name, in denominations from 50 cents up to $10. A few surviving notes now fetch up to $10,000 at auction. He received free ferry and train passage, discounted rent, and complimentary meals. Some establishments even sold souvenirs bearing his likeness, a tribute to a man who made himself royalty in the court of public affection. In 1866, Emperor Norton adopted a second title, Protector of Mexico. The following year, he was arrested by Special Officer Armand Barbier and involuntarily committed for mental health treatment. The public was outraged. Scathing editorials demanded his release. In response, San Francisco Police Chief Patrick Crowley swiftly ordered Norton's release and issued a formal apology for the arrest. In true imperial fashion, Norton graciously responded by granting Officer Barbier a full pardon for his transgression. From that day forward, Norton was treated with proper respect by local law enforcement. Police officers reportedly saluted whenever they saw him on the street, a recognition of his unique station and enduring popularity. The U.S. government, in its own way, did recognize Emperor Norton's royal status. Take the 1870 U.S. Census. Joshua Norton is listed as a 50-year-old resident of 624 Commercial Street. His occupation? Emperor. The census also labeled him insane, but added that the fact of idiocy will be better determined by the common consent of the neighborhood than by attempting to apply any scientific measure to the weakness of the mind or will. Also in 1870, after newspapers began using his name to publish unauthorized decrees, Norton took action. He formally declared the Pacific Appeal, a Black-owned and operated newspaper, as his official imperial organ. From that point forward, the Appeal published roughly 250 proclamations on his behalf between September 1870 and May 1875. Emperor Norton also openly opposed anti-Chinese racism. During the 1860s and 70s, violent demonstrations and riots sometimes turned deadly. On April 28, 1878, he tried to ease tensions by speaking at an anti-Chinese rally. He ordered the crowds to disperse, but despite his authority and good intentions, his efforts were ultimately unsuccessful. Emperor Norton collapsed on the corner of California and DuPont Streets on the rainy evening of Thursday, January 8, 1880. The response was immediate. A carriage was quickly summoned to take him to the city receiving hospital, but it was too late. According to the obituary in the next day's paper, Emperor Norton was already dead by the time help arrived. As the Call reported, on the reeking pavement, in the darkness of a moonless night, under the dripping rain, Norton I, by the grace of God, Emperor of the United States and Protector of Mexico, departed this life. Emperor Norton died in poverty, with only about $5 on his person and a single gold sovereign worth around $2.50, found in his room. Other belongings included imperial bonds, which he sold to tourists with a falsely promised 7% interest rate, and several fabricated telegrams. One, allegedly from Tsar Alexander II, congratulated him on his upcoming wedding to Queen Victoria. Another, from the President of France, decried the Union as a threat to world peace. When word spread that he was to be buried in a simple redwood coffin, members of the Pacific Club, a San Francisco businessmen's association, raised funds for a rosewood casket and a proper funeral. The service took place on January 10th. The next day, under the headline, Le Roi est mort, the king is dead, the San Francisco Chronicle reported that some 10,000 people came to view his body before the 2 p.m. funeral. Only about 30 people attended the quiet burial at the Masonic Cemetery. In 1934, his remains were exhumed and reinterred at Woodlawn Memorial Park Cemetery in Colma, California, where they rest to this day. Emperor Norton was undoubtedly a false king, but a harmless one, beloved by those who humored his delusions. He never stoked hate, never sought to oppress, never twisted the truth for his own gain. He made himself a monarch, but not a tyrant. That's more than can be said for some modern figures whose narcissism, enabled by spineless yes men, has led to real-world harm. So maybe it's worth asking, when is letting someone pretend to rule just harmless fun? And when does it cross into dangerously enabling malevolence? If this story made you smile, raised an eyebrow, or sparked some deep thought, consider giving it a like, sharing it with a friend, and leaving a comment. I'd love to hear your favorite Emperor Norton moment. And if you enjoy history that's quirky, curious, and a little crumb-covered, hit subscribe and ring the bell so you don't miss what's next. Long live the Emperor. Thanks for watching.